It's roughly 1.8 million years ago. You're Homo erectus. You're hungry. You have just spent the better part of a day tracking something across the African savanna, and you have finally caught it, and now you are holding raw meat in your hands. And you eat it. Just like that. Cold, bloody, chewy, raw. Because that's what you do. That's what everything does. Animals eat food. Food is raw. That is not a problem. Just lunch. At no point does it occur to you to set it on fire first. And yet here we are, 8 billion people on a planet where almost every culture in every corner of the world for tens of thousands of years has taken perfectly edible food and deliberately destroyed it with heat before putting it anywhere near their mouths. We built entire civilizations around this habit. We have restaurants, we have Michelin stars, we have people on television crying because a souffle didn't rise correctly. We turned setting food on fire into an art form and a career and an identity. The question is, when did that start? And more importantly, why? Because here's the thing nobody tells you. Cooking isn't just a habit we picked up. It isn't a cultural quirk. Cooking might be the single most important thing our ancestors ever did. It may have literally built the brain you're using to watch this video. And the story of how it started is considerably stranger and more dramatic than any food documentary has ever made it sound. Let's start with the biology. Because the body keeps records of what our ancestors were doing long before anyone wrote anything down. Here is what cooking actually is at the biochemical level. When you apply heat to food, you are breaking down the molecular structure of proteins and the starches before they ever enter a digestive system. You are doing the first stage of digestion outside of the body. You are pre-processing. Raw meat is hard to chew. The proteins are tightly wound. The connective tissue is dense. A human with no tools and an average jaw is going to spend a very long time working through raw food. Studies of chewing time in modern humans eating raw diets suggest that without cooking, we would spend somewhere between 4 and 6 hours per day just chewing. 4 to 6 hours. Every single day. Just chewing. That sounds annoying. It is actually much worse than annoying. Every hour spent chewing is an hour not spent doing anything else. Not hunting, not gathering, not building shelter, not raising children, not developing the social structures and accumulated knowledge that eventually produced agriculture and writing, and several thousand years later, this video. Time spent chewing is time not invested in everything that makes humans distinctively human, and the gut that processes raw food is an enormous gut. Maintaining a large digestive system is metabolically expensive. It uses a lot of energy that could theoretically be going somewhere else. This is where Richard Wrangham comes in. Wrangham is a primatologist at Harvard who spent decades studying great apes and human evolution, and in 2009, he published a book called Catching Fire: How Cooking Made Us Human, which made an argument so clean and so well supported by evidence that it has reshaped the field. The core of his argument goes like this. Around 1.8 million years ago, something very strange happens in the fossil record of human evolution. The genus Homo, our direct ancestors, undergoes a rapid and dramatic physical transformation. Skull size increases significantly. Jaws and teeth get smaller. The gut gets smaller. The body gets larger overall and better adapted for running long distances. And at roughly the same moment in the archaeological record, we start finding consistent evidence of fire use. Wrangham's argument is that these are not coincidences. They are causally connected. Cooking created a biological feedback loop that literally reshaped the human body. A smaller gut means less energy spent on digestion and more available for other metabolically expensive tissues. The most metabolically expensive tissue in the human body is the brain. The human brain is approximately 2 to 3% of body mass, but consumes approximately 20% of total caloric intake. It is an extraordinarily expensive organ to run. And the hypothesis, supported by comparative anatomy across primate species, is that you cannot have both a large gut and a large brain in the same body without a caloric surplus to fund them both. Something has to give. Cooking provided the surplus. Cooked food releases more calories than raw food. The same piece of meat cooked versus raw delivers meaningfully more usable energy to the body eating it. Cooking breaks down plant starches into bioavailable sugars. It denatures proteins, making them easier to absorb. It kills parasites and pathogens that would otherwise spend weeks quietly destroying your digestive system from the inside. Cooked food is, from the perspective of your metabolism, an upgrade in almost every measurable direction. The feedback loop looks like this. Ancestors who cooked got more energy from the same food. More energy meant a better fed brain. A better fed brain was a more capable brain. A more capable brain found more food, cooked it better, fed itself more effectively. Repeat for 100,000 generations, and you eventually end up with a species that can do calculus. The anatomy is the record. Smaller jaws, smaller teeth, smaller gut, bigger brain. This is what cooking looks like from the inside, written in bone across a million years of human evolution. Now here's where it gets genuinely complicated. Because if cooking created our large brains, then we cooked before we had the brains sophisticated enough to have invented cooking intentionally. Which raises an obvious problem. Who started it and how? The oldest confirmed evidence of controlled fire use by our ancestors dates to roughly 1 million years ago at Wonderwork Cave in South Africa. Burnt bone and charred plant material concentrated in a way that is inconsistent with a natural wildfire. A deliberate contained fire inside a cave. At this point, we are not even Homo sapiens. We are Homo erectus, our earlier cousin with a smaller brain, a heavier brow, and no written language to leave us instructions. But here's the thing. 1 million years ago is almost certainly not the beginning. It is the oldest evidence we have found. And there is a substantial difference between the oldest evidence and the actual first occurrence. Organic material, charred plant ash, scattered fire remnants, these things are extraordinarily fragile over geological time. They disappear, they scatter. They get buried under meters of sediment and missed entirely by every archaeological survey that has ever happened. There is evidence suggesting that fire use in basic food processing may go back 2 million years or further. Stone tools from 2.6 million years ago have microscopic residue patterns consistent with cutting cooked rather than raw animal tissue. This is contested, genuinely disputed among researchers, and the evidence is not conclusive. But the question it raises is important. The absence of direct evidence in the archaeological record is not evidence that something did not happen. It is evidence that the physical traces have not survived. What we can say with confidence is this. By the time modern Homo sapiens appear in the fossil record around 300,000 years ago, consistent controlled fire use and food processing were already established behaviors with a very long history behind them. But there is an older question hidden inside this one. Before anyone intentionally set fire to anything, something must have started the process. And the most likely answer is not invention. It is observation. Think about wildfire. Africa is a continent with enormous amounts of lightning strike wildfire. Savanna fires that sweep across thousands of square miles, killing animals and burning vegetation in their path. These fires have been happening for millions of years. And our ancestors, long before they controlled fire, were living in the same landscape as those fires. After a wildfire passes, the landscape is left with cooked animals, carcasses that were caught in the fire, already dead, already partially cooked by the heat. Small animals especially, rodents, reptiles, ground-nesting birds, killed and cooked in place by a wildfire. The first human or pre-human to eat a post-wildfire animal was not doing anything conceptually revolutionary. They were scavenging, which is an old and practical survival strategy. But what they encountered was food that tasted different. Food that was easier to chew. Food that released a different set of compounds when heated, including the Maillard reaction products that produce the complex, rich, savory flavors we now call cooked taste. The brain reward systems that make food pleasurable. The dopamine response to calories. The preference for energy-dense foods. These systems were already in place. Cooked meat activated them more powerfully than raw meat. Not because our ancestors understood cooking chemistry, because the reward system was doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is to identify and remember better caloric sources. So they ate it, they liked it, they came back to wildfire aftermath sites to look for it, they noticed the connection between fire and this better food, and at some point, some ancestor somewhere made the cognitive leap. Why wait for the fire to happen to the animal? What if we put the animal in the fire? That is not a small thought. That is cause and effect reasoning applied creatively across a time gap. This thing that happens there causes this outcome over here. What if I make that thing happen deliberately to get the outcome I want? That is planning. That is abstraction. That is the beginning of technology. You do not know when it happened. You cannot know. But somewhere in the deep past of our species, someone put meat near a fire on purpose for the first time. And that moment, quiet and unrecorded, with no audience and no ceremony, changed the trajectory of every human life that followed. Here's the part of this story that formal evolutionary accounts consistently underplay, and it might be the most important part. Cooking requires fire. Fire is not portable. Fire is a place, and a place where cooking happens is, almost by definition, a place where a group gathers. Every culture in human history that has cooked together, or cooked for each other, or organized their social life around the time and space of cooking. The hearth is not incidentally a social location. It is structurally one. Wrangham and others have argued that the cooking fire was the original social institution. Before villages, before agriculture, before any of the formal structures we associate with civilization, there was a fire with food on it, and the people who belonged to that fire gathered around it at the end of the day. This changes the nature of the social group in important ways. Raw food primates forage individually or in loose groups and eat wherever they find food. The moment you have a central cooking site, you have a home base, a place to return to, a place that requires coordination and shared investment. You do not build a fire, cook a meal, and then let strangers walk over and eat it without social rules about who belongs and who does not. Cooking created belonging. It created the concept of a shared meal as a social act. It created the distinction between the group that eats together and the groups that do not. And it created something else that rarely gets discussed. Cooking is labor that can be divided. One person hunts, another person processes the kill, another person tends the fire, another gathers the plant foods that go alongside the meat. The cooked meal at the end of the day is the product of collective effort, and the sharing of it is a collective reward. This is a fundamentally different social structure from every individual finding and eating their own food in real time. Division of cooking labor may be the oldest form of economic cooperation in human history. The hearth may be the first workplace. The shared meal may be the original contract. I contributed to this, I have a claim on it, and so do you, because you contributed too. There is one more dimension to this story that does not get enough attention. Cooking requires planning in a way that almost no other survival behavior does. You have to obtain the food. You have to obtain or maintain the fire. You have to have the tools to process the food, to skin and cut and prepare it. You have to understand timing, the concept that food placed near heat will be ready to eat at a specific future moment, not immediately. You have to manage the fire itself, feeding it, controlling it, preventing it from going out or spreading dangerously. And you have to coordinate all of this across the members of the group. This is multi-step future-oriented planning involving physical tools, controlled use of a dangerous environmental force, and social coordination. It is cognitively sophisticated in a way that is difficult to fully appreciate from inside a species for whom these things have been automatic for so long that we cannot remember learning them. No other animal on Earth does this. Other animals use tools. Other animals show rudimentary planning. Other animals form complex social groups. But no other animal takes food, deliberately renders it more dangerous by setting it on fire, controls that fire through a sustained process, waits for a specific outcome, and then shares the result according to social rules about who contributed and who is owed. Cooking is not just a behavior. It is a cognitive profile. It is evidence of a mind that plans ahead, manages complex processes, and operates within a social contract about shared resources. A species that could cook was already, in a meaningful sense, us. So, when did ancient humans start cooking food? The honest answer is we do not know exactly. The physical evidence takes us back 1,000,000 years with confidence, and probably considerably further with reasonable inference. The biological evidence in our own bodies, the small jaws, the small gut, the enormous brain, suggests it started early enough to reshape our anatomy across hundreds of thousands of generations. But here's what we know for certain. Cooking did not begin as cuisine. It did not begin as culture. It probably did not even begin as a plan. It began as a scavenger, noticing that fire-killed animals tasted better and were easier to eat. It began as pattern recognition. It became technology. It became social structure. It became civilization. Everything that happened after The spices and the recipes and the Michelin stars and the restaurants and the traditions and the arguments about whose grandmother's version is the correct one, all of it is downstream of one unremarkable moment, somewhere in Africa, 2 million years ago, when one of our ancestors looked at something burning and thought, that looks like it might be good to eat. That thought cost them nothing. It gave us everything. Next time you make dinner tonight, even if it's just something you threw in a microwave, you are participating in the oldest continuous technology in human history. You are doing what your species has done every single day for more than 1 million years. You learned it from your parents, they learned it from theirs, and that chain goes back, unbroken, through every human civilization that ever existed, all the way to a fire on an African savanna and an ancestor who was just very, very hungry. Some habits are hard to break. This one built the brain that has all the other habits. Like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. I'll see you in the next one.